I know my own destiny, Uncle.
Is it your own destiny? Or is it a destiny someone else has tried to force on you?
Stop it, Uncle. I have to do this.
I'm begging you, Prince Zuko. It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
Every story about destiny asks the same question. Are we born with a path, or do we create it by our own hands? In Avatar: The Last Airbender, few characters embody that struggle more deeply than Prince Zuko, the banished son, scarred by his father, and chasing a vision of honor that was never truly his own. Zuko's journey is not just a redemption story, it's a philosophical odyssey that traces humanity's oldest struggle between fate, freedom, obedience, and self-knowledge. From Plato's allegory of the cave, where people mistake shadows for truth, to Aristotle's virtue ethics, where character is forged by practice, to Immanuel Kant's reason and David Hume's compassion, Zuko's story mirrors the entire arc of moral philosophy. This is the story of how a lost prince learned to become free, not by following his destiny, but by creating it on his own. At the beginning of Book 1, Zuko's life is ruled by a single idea, that his destiny has already been written for him. He believes that his worth lies entirely in capturing the Avatar and restoring his honor. To him, this is not a choice, but an absolute truth, a sacred mission that defines his very existence. And this conviction is what traps him. He is imprisoned, not by chains, but by belief, a destiny imposed upon him by his father and his nation, one that he accepts blindly without question. Plato describes this kind of ignorance in the Republic, where prisoners live in a cave, chained so they can only see the shadows of real things cast by a fire behind them. These shadows, he says, are the only realities they know. And for Zuko, he lives entirely among these shadows. The image of honor that drives him is a projection cast by the Fire Nation's distorted vision of strength, obedience, and conquest. He mistakes that reflection for truth. And every action he takes in Book 1, from hunting the Avatar to resisting Iroh's subtle guidance, instead obsessing over his father's approval, flows from that illusion. He believes there's no other path, no alternative destiny. His entire moral compass points towards one false north, and that is Ozai's validation. Everything Zuko does in Book 1 is to gain his father's approval, and this sends him down a very dark road. He believes in order to achieve his destiny, he needs to follow what is set out for him by his father in order to gain his approval. Iroh plays the role of Socrates, gently guiding Zuko with advice and stories rather than direct questioning. His guidance in Book 1 is quiet and reflective. He encourages Zuko to see beyond anger and obsession. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Iroh plants the same idea in Zuko, teaching indirectly that reflection and self-awareness are the beginning of freedom. And enlightenment is not an easy path. Plato warned that enlightenment is painful. In the Republic it is written, when he first looks upon the light he will suffer sharp pains, but little by little he will grow accustomed to it. Zuko's pain in Book 1, his exile, his scar, his failures, are the first flickers of that light, but he still turns his face away from it, preferring the familiar comfort of the shadows he knows. For Zuko, ignorance is bliss. He has not yet learned how to question the world that has defined him. In his eyes, the Fire Nation's will is the absolute truth. His father's judgment is absolute justice, and that destiny is something to obey, not to create. Only later will he begin to realize that what he called destiny was merely a choice. Seeing truth is not the same as living it. For that, Zuko must learn to act differently to transform knowledge into character. This is where Aristotle's virtue ethics come into play. Aristotle has said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." Virtue, he says, is not a gift of destiny, but a practice cultivated through choices and discipline. Zuko's journey in Book 2 is a moral apprenticeship. He tries to act honorably, but he is constantly confronted with the gap between his inherited beliefs and the person he truly wants to be. He struggles with anger, pride, and shame, yet he has also begun to question the meaning of honor, fairness, and loyalty. Each choice he makes, whether small acts of compassion, his honesty with Iroh and himself, is an attempt to restrain his temper. This is a step in uncovering his authentic self. Through these experiences, Zuko learns that morality is not dictated by his father or by the traditions of his nation. but by reflection, deliberate action, and understanding his own values. His journey in Book 2 is about discovering who he truly is beyond the expectations that are imposed on him, laying the foundations for the principled choices he'll make later on. Even when he makes mistakes, these failures are part of his moral education. Virtue can only be learned through action, through struggle and repetition. And when Zuko finally chooses to stand with Aang, it's not a moment of fate, but a moment of earned moral clarity. This is the mark of a true virtuous person, one who aligns their desires, reason, and will towards the good. Zuko did not escape destiny, he refined it through daily acts of courage and humility. But that leaves one question unresolved. What gives morality its ultimate authority, and why should we choose the good at all? By the final season, Zuko's choices are no longer reactive, they are principled. He has discovered something which Immanuel Kant called the moral law within. In his groundwork for the metaphysics of morals, Immanuel Kant writes, "Two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe, the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me." To act morally, Immanuel Kant says that it is to act from duty, not from desire or reward. Freedom is not doing what we want, it is doing what we ought to do. When Zuko confronts his father and joins Team Avatar, it is not out of vengeance or to reclaim honor, it is from conviction. He acts because he knows that it is right. That decision embodies Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Zuko acts on a universal principle, that power should serve peace, not domination. In doing so, he becomes morally autonomous, a being who writes his own law. He emerges from the cave into reality, no longer bound by the shackles. He has become a free man, not by following the destiny that has been imposed on him, but by self-reflection and acting on what is morally good. But there is more to Zuko than being guided by reason alone. His transformation is also emotional, deeply human. In a treatise of human nature, David Hume has written, "Reason is and ought only to be the slave of the passions," and that morality is more properly felt than judged. Zuko's final growth is not only one from logic, but it is an emotional transformation. He faces himself, he faces his own fears, and he faces what has grounded him before, breaking its shackles and freeing himself. This emotional transformation is highlighted in his apology to his uncle, pure empathy, the return of feeling after years of repression, goodness born not from reasoning but from compassion. While Kant gives Zuko his principle, Hume gives him his heart. Together they forge the balance that defines true freedom. By the end, Zuko is no longer a prisoner of destiny. He is not living for his father or his nation, or even for the Avatar. He is living by the moral law he has built for himself through reflection, struggle, and love. Going back to the allegory of the cave, after leaving the cave, the philosopher must return to guide others into the light. That is what Zuko does. He brings fire, once the symbol of conquest, back as a source of warmth and life. Zuko's story reminds us that destiny is not a chain, it is a forge, and what emerges depends on the choices we make in its heat. The philosophers called it virtue, autonomy, and wisdom. Zuko called it honor. But what they were all talking about is the same thing, the moment we stop being what others made us out to be and start becoming what we choose to be. And thus, destiny is not something we are given at birth, and it's not something that's imposed on us by others. But destiny, and I mean true destiny, is something that we dare to create on our own.